to get the priorities. For example, I will ask how to run ZK on Jetty. Yeah, and then one of these cards appears here. So if everyone can put their questions, or one question, I think we have enough people, so if everyone puts multiple questions, we will not get anywhere. We will just see how far we get. And I will set a timer for, I would say, how much? 3-5 minutes, let's say. To keep it short, 3 minutes. So you have 3 minutes to post a question. And don't be shy. There's no bad question. Just keep it simple if possible. And if we don't have enough questions, we can always go back to phase 1 at some point and add more. So don't worry, this is not a one-way street. We just need to start somehow. So you should see. You should have a browser on your side. So don't. There's already one. Cool. Thanks for the first question. I will remove my dummy. And yeah, 2 minutes left. Perfect. Okay. Two ZK, there's maybe two. So in case someone else joined the meeting, that's the topic today. If you don't find the input field, it's somewhat hidden at the bottom here. It doesn't look like an input, then click the plus icon and the question will appear in the board to discuss. Thanks, Gene. So 1 minute, no question. I mean, don't worry, if there's too few questions, you know me, I can talk a long time on the same topic. So I won't run, I would say, not running out of time. I'm always running out of time, so don't worry. There's always more to talk about. Okay, to grid to interchange the core with the respective cells from the. Somewhere there seems to be a limit of the question length. Okay, that's one lesson learned. Keep the questions short. You can update your question if you think it's not showing all the details you want to show. Okay, 30 seconds. More coming. And there's really a limit. Okay, I wonder if I show this on the big screen. Few changes user runs. Okay, then maybe we have to give someone the voice at this moment. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Time's up. So I would say, okay, 6 questions is good. Let's just go into the next phase. Next phase is please vote for your question. I would say keep this short as possible. I think I'll stop after 1 minute. Everyone just hit the plus icon on what they think is most interesting for them. And then we have an order in which to discuss the questions. Now, for example, I say I'm most interested in server-side pagination. I think you can also click multiple ones if you're not just interested in ones. You see there's also questions appearing right now, so you can still add, you just have less time for people to vote for you. Okay, I don't see any votes. Maybe I see them only on the next screen, could be. So 1 minute is almost over. I want to have more time for Q&A. And then I say, okay, time is up. and mark as done. And the next one. So now we have the vote. Okay, there's one with 10. I hope you didn't click yourself 10 times, which is possible. So we just say, okay, that's what we start with. Wait, how to share? Okay, so now we see this on every screen. You clicked it 10 times. Okay, so it's honest. Then start with the 3. Sorry. Yes. Yeah, it's also a lesson learned. Otherwise, I would have asked for a vote. Who asked for this question? If there's only one hand being raised, then I know someone cheated. Uh, okay, which is a recommended way to you make microservices with ZK? A microservice with ZK um, depends a bit on what you consider a microservice. I think you mean these things where, or I don't really know. The microservice to me is a small thing that returns some data, and then you query it and you get some data. Or you can post in the Zoom chat and clarify if I'm misinterpreting your question. So microservice, do you mean the ZK UI as a microservice, or do you mean something else that is not ZK that acts as a microservice? Because then you almost have your answer. Yeah, if you want to just provide data, then don't use ZK for it, because ZK produces a front end, so it's not a tool to provide data to someone else querying. Of course, you can have a servlet in your a servlet of any kind that returns some data that is not a ZK servlet, but ZK by itself is not a microservice tool. I'm interested in microservices and containers. Yes, exactly. Yeah. If you want to run ZK in a container, then I would say, yeah, maybe run it with Spring Boot, which offers a simple runtime where you just have a Java that you can run. I think next week we will have a Spring Boot or Spring and Spring Boot session again. So that's maybe interesting for you then. Clustering, yeah, is always challenging. I just saw your second question, clarification on clustering. It depends on, again, how you want to do clustering. If you just want to start up a service and shut it down, Kubernetes, I don't really know what it does in this regard. Maybe used to integration with Spring. I want to know if anyone tried that. Yeah, integration with Spring is always possible. Kubernetes, I don't know. If it can run a jar file, then yes, you can run also a ZK application as a jar file inside one of these Kubernetes nodes. I don't even know how to pronounce it properly, so I say Kubernetes because I'm German. And yeah, I would say Spring Boot maybe. I don't know if this somewhat clarifies the question, because otherwise I'll just skip to the next one. Because Stefan was so honest, I just go to this one. when multiple list boxes should look the same in regards of headers and contents, how can I reuse that? There are also, again, a few ways you can do this. You can do can create a template for columns and headers and just apply the template in all your list boxes that should look the same. I just apply the same template. This requires ZK EE and the ZUTI jar file. Or if you have, if your application is implemented in Java, you can just call the same method that sets up the same columns or same column headers based on the logic that is that you require. It doesn't need a ZUL file to reuse something. And reuse the content, that's slightly, oh no, it's not weird, no. For the content, you can also apply a template. I think that's an old feature where you just specify a model template for the row, and the template can be coming from a separate ZUL file, or in Java code you can implement a list item renderer. If I think I can find this somewhere. zkoss list item renderer list box model. I just want to find something that's relevant. I never know exactly where to go directly. Demo list box. I would like the component reference. Oh, list item render list box model. Yeah, that's good. That's a good one. And there is somewhere model enable with a list. Well, this is the multiple selection, but here you see the list items are rendered manually. Is there somewhere? Template. Ah, here's a template. So this template, oops, so selected. This template here can refer to an external file, and in the list head you can apply a template using the apply element. Yes, you can apply the same template with different data if the data matches your template. Yeah, of course, if the data doesn't match, you need a different column definition or header definition, but that's a way to reuse. Or as said, you can provide the Java way and just add the children, the list headers via Java code if you have some kind of meta information that describes all the columns you need. Just call the same function or method that it uses or that creates cells and list headers based on your configuration data. So both things. Okay. What else do we have? So the next highest voted question was this one from Pavel. Oh, that's a long one. Okay. Is there a way to show everything? I think we saw this here in the edit. Okay, I wrote. I'll try to explain. Let's say we have an entity order. It is open in a CRUD form with zk form, which after a few changes, a user runs a command which triggers Hibernate. It passes a proxy value from the form to the select query, and then Hibernate throws an exception, object references an unsaved trended, save the trended instance before flushing. Okay, so that's your scenario. What can we do about this? I assume you don't want Hibernate to complain about it. So I would say don't send the proxy to Hibernate directly, because the proxy is, or the zk form proxy is something specific to zk to handle your form state, to handle non-saved values. So before saving something to Hibernate, I would say trigger the save method of your form proxy and then send this back to Hibernate. Don't send the form proxy to Hibernate. It's not meant to be used like this. I hope that's available for you to not send the proxy, but I would not send the proxy, the form proxy, anywhere if you can somehow control this. I would keep it in the UI, and whenever you save the form, it will call the commit to origin method of your form proxy, and then the original object will be updated, which you can hopefully then send to Hibernate without errors. If there are still problems after sending the original object, then I would say post a bug to our depending if you have support, to our support channel. Otherwise, try to post it in the forum or in our tracker directly. I need to select additional data when a few fields are filled with data form without saving. Select additional data when fields are filled with data on form without saving. You want to use the form proxy as a query object. Okay. Obviously, Hibernate has a problem with it, so it's not. I don't say. I don't know if it's supported or not. It's just too specific. I have never considered this case. I never come across, so I can't really help on this one. I think in this case you have to create a new object and send it to Hibernate. Maybe you can easily clone it somehow. Yeah, no better solution right now. I'm sorry. Does this somehow answer your question? Yeah, I'm really sorry. These are not meant to be used with Hibernate because Hibernate creates proxies by themselves. I think we make sure that that zk can create a proxy around a Hibernate proxy, and then if you save to the origin, it will somehow keep the original proxy of Hibernate and hopefully not destroy it. Oh, I missed one question. I'm sorry. There is. So I think I close on this one. So I will go to, which one was it? Can integers, which is the way to make microservices? I completely skipped this one. I'm really sorry. So I just do this one. How would you do server-side pagination with listbox? I think this happens by default. If you create a listbox and you enable pagination, it will only send the current page to the client. So the pagination happens at server side. I assume you mean how to not load every list item directly and only load the current page instead of loading everything, which also can happen at server side. There's two different ways. And for this, I would suggest to either implement your own list model that can load pages of data on demand. So whenever you when implementing the list, the abstract list model is the easy starting point. Just open this class for now. Control. Oh no, we just create a new one. This is easy to illustrate like this. Create a new class. My list model. So my list model, and we just say cancel and extends abstract list model. And we just, not the swing one, use the zk one. And it will ask you to implement the methods. And these methods are quite simple. So you have only two methods to implement. One is the get element add, and the other one is the get size method. You can implement this horribly inefficient if you call the database every time someone calls or the UI calls get element add, or you implement it that you somehow divide your index by the page size and then ask your database, give me the page number 15, which will be from maybe 1,500 to 1,550. And then with get size, that's where you just say, tell zk, in total there are 5,000 records. And based on the elements, you can keep some kind of, what I always do is I keep some kind of hash map for the pages that are already loaded. So some kind of map integer as the simplest way, integer, comma, and then list of my record type. Just say, in case it was could be any object, yeah. So you just keep some kind of page cache. Something like this. And initially you initialize the map, maybe using a hash map. Import class. And then in the element add, what you do is ask them to divide the index by the page size, and then if the page cache is not there yet, you just load this one page, and then the next time the next index is queried, maybe index 51, you already know that you have loaded the page number 2, and then just do the maths and calculate the position you want. I think there is one thing that is even helping you. There is a pageable model. So what this interface does is it's providing the get page count and the get active page. So you can already call these methods to determine the page size. So you can say here this get page size. Page count, of course, doesn't make sense before the actual size has been called. But active page is the one you could also query, but based on the index that is currently being loaded, you already know which page you would be on. So get page size is the relevant part here to start computing. Yeah, you say the start index would be equals index divided by page size. Index divided by page size plus index mod page size. This would be your start index for your database query. Oh no, for the current page, it's just index divided by page size times page size. Again, it depends on how your database query works, but this one will round down. It will round down the index to the current page, and times page size, then you know exactly where to start your database query, and then you just say SQL start, offset, and limit. These two functions you can use. Well, that would be a starting point. Just implement your own abstract list model and then call listbox set model, and watch how often your get element add method is called to then only load the stuff that you want to load at server side. And as said, do this a bit more efficiently by caching pages. Okay, so is that what you're referring to? It sounds like. Can we integrate jQuery with zk? Which recommended way to make microservices? Okay, let's try this one. I need to click the share, but I also need to learn how to use this tool. So can we integrate jQuery with zk? By default, the jQuery is already integrated in zk. You might have come across this in security checks that that recently there are some jQuery vulnerabilities discovered in the version that zk uses. So maybe the question is, if you want to integrate an additional jQuery version for your own code and for your own plugins, and the answer is also yes. So it depends on, if you want to use the built-in version, just use jQuery as normal. The next version we plan to release is a major upgrade that only contains a jQuery update. We update from version 1.12 to 3.5 latest X something to get all the vulnerability fixes. So watch out for this one. It should be 9.10. And unfortunately, all of the other features that are currently in the 9.10 freshly will go into 9.2. It will be the same schedule, just we try to what's the opposite of postpone? Prepone. We want to release the jQuery update earlier because of the urgency right now. So if you have a ZK page, there is already jQuery. Now, if you want this, there's two specialties. You can use jQuery like this. For example, give me a button. Yeah, then it will return. It will find the button, so it's already there inside ZK. And you see it's this button. Or if you want to search for something ZK specific, you can say, give me a ZK text box. So ZK has a special selector to select by widget type. For example, give me a text box, and then it will find a ZK text box, so which is in a jQuery extension. Or you can search by server-side ID with a $ prefix. So if we went to our main page, just index.zool, and we give, the button has an ID submit, because if we check the button, it has a UUID that is not very nice, because it's different every time. So if you want to select by server-side ID, we just say submit, and then we find the button by its component ID that you specified at server-side. And then you can do all the jQuery function on, how to say, on click. If we just want to add a click listener and do something when the click happens. Console.log clicked, and enter, and I click it, and it is integrated with jQuery. If your demand is to implement multiple jQuery versions, then or your own jQuery version, then zk has a fallback. So internally, zk uses JQ instead of the dollar function. It's doing all the same things, but JQ is the one that doesn't change. And if you integrate your own jQuery version, you can use the dollar with your own jQuery version and JQ with a ZK built-in version. And all your plugins that you load on your own version will not conflict with the JQ object that's used by ZK internally. So if you want to be sure to use the ZK, use the JQ. Is that covering your question about jQuery? If not, raise your hand. Let's see, the next one. Is it possibly, how to try to explain? Okay, the next one. Is there any possibility in grid component? I think it's big enough. Okay, in the grid component to interchange the columns with their respective cells from the controller, and in listbox component to interchange the columns with their cells from the controller, and in listbox to interchange the columns with their cells. This question was asked by Javier. That's I don't fully understand the question. I'll get back to it in case you asked. You have some details, because interchange the columns with their cells doesn't make sense to me, because cells and columns can't be interchanged. You can maybe change a column with a column, or interchange a cell with a cell, but not a column with a cell. It somehow doesn't fit into the same position. So I want to just maybe exchange the columns. Okay. Okay, I want to move the columns, keeping data in their cells. Yes, but you just have to move them. that's slightly uncomfortable. So if you have a grid with 5 columns and 10 rows, then you have to, if you want to swap column 3 and 5, you have to swap the columns, and you have to swap the cells in the code. That's possible. ZK allows dynamic updates, but there is no convenience function to do this by yourself. You have to just change the things, change the columns and the cells at the same time, or maybe apply a different list item or grid item renderer that renders the columns in different ways. There's no convenience way or no shortcut for this. I mean, move columns, keeping the data in their cells. Yeah, you have to move the cells one by one for each row. Just iterate over the rows that are currently rendered and swap the cells. It's possible to use the insert before and append to functions of the row to change the position of the cell. Yeah. And if you do this at server side in one method, it will send all these updates to the client, and it will change the positions. I said no shortcut. And then, how's the time? Oh, we are good. So there's one. When upgrading from ZK 8.5 to ZK 9, the POM XML shown. blah, blah, blah. Why and what is it to do? That's a good question. That is also an old question and already solved. This artifact is coming from a different repository, and I think I have this in my example, so I can maybe just show this to you. If not, I will find one. Yes, this library is unfortunately no longer on Maven, on the Maven Central. So if you need this, if you need Jasper reports, you can add an additional repository to your Maven or to your Gradle file, and then it will find it. So that's the repository location where it finds this one. We can just open it in the browser, and somehow they changed their hosting location. And here they have somewhere, I think no, what was it? I'll find it. This one. Com lower text. Did they move it again? I don't see it right now. Index, third-party artifacts. Here, lower text. And there's the version JS6. So it's only this weird repository that Jaspersoft JFrog HTTPS. I wonder if they support HTTPS. Just double check. Yeah, they support also HTTPS. So my example should be updated to use HTTPS instead of HTTP. That's an old example. Thanks for reminding. But if you don't need a Jasper reports, just exclude it completely from your dependencies. Here we can see in the dependency tree, dependencies, compile path, zkx includes Jasper reports. And if you just exclude this complete dependency, then there will be a tiny warning at your application startup that it didn't find the Jasper reports library and therefore disabled this component. And then your jar file or your WAR file will be, I think, about 6 megabytes smaller, and it will not run into this problem at all. And here you see the dependency. So it's some dependency from this third-party component integration. Okay, good. Easy one, but everyone came across this so far. Yeah, so now we are running out of voted questions. I think we go back one phase and you can vote again. I'll give you another minute to vote and then we see if we get any updates. So that also the newer questions have a chance to be picked up. Just drink something. I wonder if I can mark a question as and then I'll just keep them in the text. 10 seconds. And done. Okay, let's see. Did we get any updates? How would you do server-side pagination? Which is the recommended way to microservices? The best way to switch Eclipse Maven. Okay, this one looks like the next one. Open. Okay, let's see. What is the best way to switch a project to a newer version of ZK, Eclipse or Maven? I would say, independent of the IDE, I would always use Maven or Gradle to switch versions. That's definitely recommended. If you for some reason can't have any access to remote Maven, you have to download the packages and then it's possible to switch the version inside Eclipse using the ZK Studio plugin. Just because any of you are asking, the new version of ZK Studio doesn't require to sign up and register anymore. We didn't want to deal with any data provided, so we just disabled this one. Don't search for the login function. Is it enough to mention the new version in the POM? Yes, that's one step. And then based on the Maven or Gradle details, for example, if we want to downgrade our test application, we will see right now I'm running on the latest 9.01 eval, and I want to go to 9.0.0, for example. And we can go into, this is a Gradle project, so I use my Gradle file, and I have my dependency versions configured in a setting, in the Gradle properties. So I say I want 9.01 or 9.00.1, which has a security fix. So if you're on 9.0.0, go to 9.0.1. It has a security patch for jQuery as well. I just then in IntelliJ you have this icon to load the Gradle changes. In Eclipse there's something similar to say update Maven project, and then it will just start downloading the internet. You will see there's some process going on, and then it will find also in Maven it will automatically download the dependencies required for your current ZK version that you specified. And this should not only work on inside the IDE, most important, it also works at command line. So you can have this automated by build tools, such as Jenkins or whatever build scripts you like, so that people don't have to install IntelliJ or Eclipse to build your project. So the goal is always to have this available at command line. So if we go to ZK workspace training, I think it's freestyle 1. Now if we, you see now it's downloading the versions, and this is otherwise an annoyingly manual process. We just Gradle.properties, and we just change our dependencies, and now I say I want 8.6.4 for example, and I save the file, and then I say /Gradle w compile, and then it will tell me what it's trying to do. It needs to compile Java. In Maven, it's Maven clean package, and here you also see it's resolving the dependencies from our Maven repository. So both Gradle and Maven use the same kind of repository. And then we will see it's updated. It still thinks it's using version 9.0.0, but you see already IntelliJ now found out it has to use version 8.6, and then with all the dependencies that depend on it, so it finds everything that's needed automatically. And that's one of the big benefits of Maven or Gradle, whatever you prefer, next to all the disadvantages of having to learn a new tool that's quite complex and not always does exactly what you expect. Yes, there is a BOM, and if you find it super useful, yes, we added the BOM that pre-configures, that even makes it a bit more simple to specify dependencies, but that requires special Maven knowledge. So for everyone who is a Maven expert, this is helpful, or who has Maven experience. Otherwise, this is just magic you don't understand. So don't feel forced to use the BOM, but if you understand what it does, it may help your project. Yes. So recommendation from my side, use Maven or Gradle, whatever you prefer. And use the Eclipse plugin only if you really have no other choice. If you're behind a firewall or you can't set up a local Maven proxy to access the resources safely. Okay, let's see. What is the next card that we haven't covered so far? If the UI is plain Java, let's see if we find someone else who had a question we haven't covered yet. Kirill, Xavier Navarro, what is the recommended process to change free version? There's another related question, or is this the same? This looks very similar. Let me check. What is the recommended process to change the free version of zk to an eval version in an Eclipse project in order to avoid conflicts between zk and I need to edit to avoid conflict between both and own libraries. As said, the recommended way is use Maven. Then you will have the tool-assisted conflict resolution. It doesn't always do what you want, and without using Maven, you're almost on your own. Yeah? the tool itself, you can download the eval package and you can install it in your in the zk Studio plugin, and then you can switch between versions. I think when you go to project settings, zk, you can switch between the package you want to associate with the project, but it will not help you with conflicts. You have to just resolve them by yourself, and that's a tedious, annoying process. That's why I recommend Maven or something else. There's nothing inside Eclipse or anything else that helps you when adding or managing dependencies manually. The conflicts will happen, and you have to deal with them when they occur. And in the worst time, that happens at runtime. So I have no recommendation for this. My recommendation is don't do it. That's the thing. Otherwise, there's really nothing that helps you with dependencies unless I'm missing something. If someone has a better way, I'm also happy to learn something new, but I am not aware of any, and I would never recommend it from what I know right now. So then we have, did we have someone? Kirill, can you provide an example for using CoachMark with minimum 2 steps? Maybe that's some kind of improvement. I don't know. I haven't used this component very often myself because I'm not writing this kind of software for end users directly. And so far we haven't had this question in our support team. We can try if we have enough time. 15 minutes. We just check if we have enough time. We look into this one. How could I print a PDF or PNG component like a div or grid? I tried Kendo UI library where it puts, but it's not optimal. Could I print PDF or PNG components like a div or grid? I have no idea. Print PDF or PNG components like a div or grid. You want to print as PDF or PNG, and you want to print a grid. I think there was no, not Jasper reports. That's not the same thing. Yeah, there are a few JavaScript libraries, but none of them are ideal. What I did for one customer in the past was just provide. I think I copied it was a bit ugly. I provide a special ZK page that's almost empty. And what I did is I copied the inner HTML of the grid I wanted into an empty Zool file. And then it will keep all the styles that ZK provides or you have in the header of your page. And then I applied print styles and printed. It's quite ugly, but this gave the best results for this customer. Just output some HTML and applying print CSS. And because he didn't want to apply additional server-side logic, I did this just in the simplest way. I posted a request to a new browser window with all the HTML content that was currently visible, and then print it on the other side. But otherwise, if you have the chance, I would say just build your grid on the other side and apply a style sheet that's designed for printing. That maybe removes scroll bars, avoids flex sizing, so everything will expand as far as it can so that everything is printable. I don't have an ideal solution for this. Printing is, yeah. I don't know anything better. I'm sorry. I tried. Can be detected from the controller when the browser window or tab is closed to perform actions such as unlocking. Question not too long. Unlocking a registry can be detected from when a browser window or tab is closed to perform actions such as when a browser tab is closed. Yes, that's a good one. You can use the desktop cleanup listener. ZK provides lots of lifecycle listener, and the one that is invoked when you close a browser tab is the remove, or it's sending a remove desktop command to the server. As long as you're on the latest version of ZK, in older versions, the old mechanism is broken in Chrome recently, since a year or so. So you need to be above 8.05 for this to work reliably. And then your remove desktop listener is called, and it's configured in ZK listener desktop cleanup. There, configuration reference. There you see the desktop cleanup listener. And it's a simple interface that you just implement. It only has one method, destroy a cleanup. And when this method is called, that means your browser tab has been closed, or the user navigated away, or the user pressed F5 to refresh the screen, or they closed the whole browser. This doesn't always work. For example, if the browser crashes, it doesn't manage to send this request, and then the desktop will clean up when the session expires. So don't have too long session expiry, session timeouts. Yeah. And the configuration happens then inside a ZK XML file. And what you do is you specify the listener element and then a class name of your own class, and you just implement the listener you want, desktop cleanup. It's often useful to combine two interfaces in one class, like desktop cleanup and desktop init at the same time, so you can have some initializing code for the current browser tab and some destroying code to clean up later. So that's easy one. Yeah. I'll see if I can ask you a question, because we have questions. Next time, maybe be on time. I can't. Yeah, the other one were earlier. Let's see if we have something. When upgrading, when missing Logi, we find this. Integrate Bootstrap with ZK next week. Watch our session next week. Yeah, and the answer is yes. And search for. So, I'm a Bootstrap. I'm not Spring Boot. Sorry, Bootstrap. Can we integrate Bootstrap with ZK? I would say integration doesn't often make sense. You can use Bootstrap alongside ZK, because ZK uses different markup than Bootstrap. So the Bootstrap styles often don't make sense for ZK components because they use a different layout of diffs. But if you create your own diffs and your own input element, you can apply styles, and then you can use the Bootstrap style classes. So technically yes, but it's not easy to make every ZK component look like a Bootstrap layout component, because the markup structure is different. So Bootstrap is not the same as ZK. You can rewrite all your. I already got someone posted a link. Yes, so there's a Bootstrap integration example, which I think goes as far as possible. Is it possible to? Okay, then I'll skip this one. Thanks for posting this one. Is it possible to do web services with ZK? I would also say yes, it is, but it doesn't make sense. Because ZK is a front-end framework and web services are something to transport data without a UI. What you can do is from ZK, you can use you can use an HTML connection to a web service, or alongside the ZK servlets, you can provide another servlet that acts as a web service endpoint and provides or reacts to requests, maybe I don't know, what are they called, requests, like, is it WSDL? Yeah, these, some kind of REST-like or some kind of data requests. So just configure your own servlet that handles your web services. But ZK has an extension mechanism, but it's not useful for this case. You can add an AU, I think it's called AU extension in ZK. It should be on the same listener page we were. There you can specify an AU extension. Oh, it's not even documented here. That's something internal. I wonder if I find it. ZK AU extension. So if you just want to provide a bit of data, you can implement an AU extension and configure it in your web XML as part of your DHTML update servlet. And there you have a service method that can respond with any kind of data. But that's not really the purpose of web services. Okay, and now we can come back to grid. Explain how the entity owner open from CRUD. That's quite cool. So, is there? Well, for the person who couldn't post their question, I will just give you the link again. Maybe there's 2 minutes in the end. So I posted a private link to everyone. Sorry. Okay. Yes. UI in plain Java with 2 votes. Here. Okay, let's go here. If I create the UI in plain Java, not using Zool, do I have to manually remove the widget's event handlers, or are they automatically removed on a page? It depends on how you, yeah, good. Thanks for the reminder. It depends on how you create, what kind of listeners you create. If you create a widget listener using the ZK client-side API, you don't have to clean up. They will just clean up when the component or the widget gets destroyed at client-side. And that's something we can also, I think we can do. That's something we should be able to do. So if you implement your own, what do you implement your own? You say this pure Java. That's even weird. Do I manually remove the widget's event handlers? I think it doesn't make a difference. Whether you create your UI with Java or with Zool, it's the same thing. Because in both cases, components get created at server side and then are rendered to the client side using the same interface and the same transport channel. So using Java and Zool, I would consider to myself as equivalent. It's just a different way of expressing the same thing. And then the question boils down on how to remove the widget event handlers. And that's something you do if you do it at all at client side. So if you implement your widget, you can override the bind and the unbind function of your widget. And in the bind function, you usually register your listeners, and in unbind, you unregister your listeners. If you do something freestyle, then you have to find a way to freestyle cleanup. That's something I can't help with, but the ZK mechanism is to use bind and unbind. And you can do the same thing from Java. You can, in Java code, you can, if you create a div, you can always call set widget override. Yeah, set widget override, and there you can override a method or set or div dot add widget listener. Yeah, add with double D. So this is a Java code for this. But in a Zool file, you could do the div. We specify the client namespace, so w the XML namespace w equals client. I use W because it corresponds to widget for me, and client sometimes corresponds to DOM elements, so I use W, and you see lots of examples with W, just to express this is a widget override. So we can say widget bind, and you can override the bind function. sorry, you are too late. Please join next time in time. I don't have much time anymore for you. So the W bind here we call the super method this dot dollar bind underscore this no, apply. I think there's not enough time for this. Apply this comma arguments. I'm trying, yeah, and then you do your listener. For example, this dot add listener. This is a client-side listener that would listen to events. Add listener, for example, on click, and the function to execute is console.log, hi, something like this. And if we close this div and I think and add some text inside it, I should be able to click this one. Go to my browser and reload. Okay, I did something wrong. Expression statement on click, illegal client override. Yes, okay. As always, needs to be a function. And then missing, okay, missing closing brackets. So we just do some formatting here. I think it's not add listener, I think it's called listen. Listen on click, hi, close, 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 open, close, close. I think it needs to be here instead. Oh, it doesn't need to be anywhere. Oh, yeah. And reload again. This listener is not a function. I'm sorry if I'm ignoring your questions right now. Okay, so okay, I didn't get this right. Okay, sorry, I have to postpone this. But if you, what I want to express is if you use this method to listen to an event at client side, then you don't have to unregister this one. Even if you do this from Java code, if you say widget add or a component add widget listener, it will automatically destroy. If you do something by yourself at jQuery listeners, you have to somehow call the corresponding jQuery unbind function inside or jQuery off method inside an overridden unbind function. So there are lots of ways to do this. Sorry, couldn't get the example to run right now, but this is usually this is definitely possible. I've done this 10,000 times, just not in this. Okay, then the why CSS animations will not work properly on ZK. Depends. CSS works the same way because the browser will not treat ZK components any different. I just assume that ZK components have different default styles that will make your animations look different. I think they just work, but maybe are overridden by ZK styles. If you mean this. Yeah. Wow, cool. Time is running out. Sorry, I didn't make it anymore into the coach mark component. Yeah, so was from my side was I can only say thank you lots for all these interesting questions. It's quite challenging for me in my brain to switch between the topics all the time, but I have a lot of fun, and I wonder if we should do this again. Maybe drop a comment in the chat. I leave the chat open for a while. whether you like the tool or not. I will, what will I do? Yeah, I hope we will do this again soon, maybe next month. We'll see. And then we all know the tool better, and we know that long questions like this don't fit, yeah? Or that we have to join in time so everyone can post the question and get into the voting system. But there's something I have to cut. If we make this open session, the people who join in time should get the chance to ask first. I think this is fair for everyone. Okay. Then, yeah, as I said, I'll leave the chat open for a while. I will stop the recording right now. And as always, if you